Hi, this is Dan Paul, and welcome to the third episode of Entrepreneur Arts. Today we have award-winning artist Michael Kungl. He's known for his Art Deco style infused into modern themes and modern pop culture. Michael, welcome to Entrepreneur Arts. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your collections for the Star Wars themed art. So, Mike, how did you get into working on Star Wars content? I know you did some licensing type content with Warner Brothers and Disney and Star Wars. So, what got you into the whole Star Wars art thing and applying this Art Deco style to Star Wars art?
Well, it just so happens that I was painting for Disney, and there was a liaison that had a connection to Star Wars before Disney and Star Wars merged, or before Disney bought Lucasfilm, or did the Star Wars, bought up the franchise, the rights to Star Wars. And I was able to kind of kill two birds with one stone because back then I had two publishers, Disney Fine Art and Acme Archives. And Acme Archives was responsible for the Star Wars. So I got introduced to Acme Archives through the Disney connection, and that's what launched the Star Wars artwork in my career.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Star Wars themed art, how you got into creating this Art Deco style and creating these amazing images for the Star Wars franchise?
Okay, so the initial idea for the way I do my Star Wars images is all based on the propaganda from our history during World War II, during World War One. I really like the propaganda feel from all of that artwork from that era. What I did is created my own versions of the propaganda style with the Star Wars characters.
Oh, that's interesting. And it would have been all these big media companies too, right? Disney did this private snafu, and Warner Brothers did the training things. Maybe not necessarily in the Art Deco style like you did, but media companies were really contracted to do these different types of media for the U.S. Army,
Yes.
the United States government. Yeah, so you also would have had I guess the other sides, and you saw this in in some of the films, some of the Star Wars films. They looked at Nazi propaganda and things like these long banners and things like that. Especially in the prequels, you saw some things that mimicked just absolute sets of a Nazi campaign, a graphic design campaign.
Yeah. So you've got the Nazi propaganda, you've got the Russian propaganda, the Chinese propaganda, all of those together, including a very famous poster artist by the name of A.M. Cassander. He started doing those to stylize posters for products. French poster art. He was A.M. Cassander was a French poster artist, Adolf Cassander, and he's probably one of my biggest inspirations as far as the style, the simplicity of a poster that was done in the 1920s.
This is pre-World War II stuff. You mentioned on your website too, a lot of the architecture, like the Empire State Building or the Hoover Dam, all these things kind of have these Art Deco motifs around them, right? And then they're
Yeah,
Art Deco inspired. If you've been to any of those places, you can see that.
I've been to the Golden Gate Bridge, Art Deco, Hoover Dam, Chrysler Building in New York, yes, Empire State Building, all of those Art Deco, all that architecture I have visited in person to draw inspiration.
So, how did you get to do
Yeah.
artwork for Disney?
That's another cool story. I was using their in-house collector's editions fine art, which is Disney Fine Art. I was using their in-house printmaker to do some of my my Art Deco Martini Girls and my Art Deco artwork. They saw my work through those channels and asked if I would like to contribute to the Disney Fine Art program. It kind of happened by circumstance. It just they were printing my non. I wasn't even painting for Disney yet, but they saw my work and said, "Hey, you have a really great style. Would you be willing to do some interpretive images for our Disney characters?" And of course, I jumped on that.
Basically,
Although,
selling your own posters, or you distributing posters through?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, cigar stuff, the Martini Girls, the travel series, the trains and the planes, and then the Martini Girls the lemon drop, which is the most infamous one. They saw that, and that's what led into me putting Tinkerbell in a martini glass.
That also led to you, like, I guess, exhibiting at the Disney, right? I've seen some posts where you were actually at Disneyland and kind of showing some of your art
Yeah.
galleries and things.
So what would happen is that once I got a stable body of work, the Disney would send me to the parks to do signings and do shows in Florida, California, Sacramento. And that led into pretty much the exposure, because once you're signed with them, then they kind of take over the marketing and use their channels to promote your work. And that's how that went down.
Oh, I see. So you don't have to deal with the marketing of your work when it
No,
comes to the Disney artwork. And
I
so,
still have to do my own marketing for my own work, but once you sign with somebody like Disney or Star Wars, they send you everywhere to do the shows so that you can sell it.
so it was the same kind of thing with Star Wars. You had the connection through Disney. Lucasfilms was still a separate thing.
Yes. And then as I was working with them, then the merger came. So it was kind of was there at the right place at the right time. And I got lucky to be able to work with both of them at the same time.
And then some of your work, it sounds like, wound up in George Lucas's private collection.
Yes, that is correct. He has commissioned me to do 11 paintings.
11 paintings. Wow.
11 paintings I commissioned for George Lucas based on the digital images that I created for Star Wars. He asked me to do commissioned fine art paintings based off those images.
Personally.
And Mike, you did some murals for the Disney Paris location. These were a series of murals, I believe, that represented different parts of the world using the Disney characters and Disney landscapes. So how did that happen?
So on the Paris, France murals for Disney, I actually worked directly with the Imagineers, and they had looked online for Disney Art Deco, and I popped up. So they called me up, and I went directly to the Disney Imagineers in LA. And we discussed the project, came up with a deal, and it took about 6 months to complete the project. And I ended up doing 10 murals, 10 medallions that separated the murals that were in 3D, that had globes in them to show the continents that were relevant to the murals, and then 8 exterior bas-reliefs, which I designed on paper, but I gave them elevations so they had a better idea of how to make the maquettes, which are very small sculptures, and then they blow them up to real life and recompose them. So that was a killer deal, and it was a super fun project. I worked with great people, and the Imagineers department was pretty excited about the whole thing too. So that's how that all went down.
So these murals that you did for Disneyland in Paris, I find them really impressive because I love how you combined not just a single theme from a single movie, but you combined elements of different Disney movies into these different parts of the world. So for like Up, and you had not only Up, but some other Donald Duck characters representing the South America, The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Ratatouille in Paris. Under the Sea, you had Donald Duck, some scuba gear, and some other Finding Nemo characters. And for the American Southwest, you combine both Woody and Friends there with the Cars theme, very much a landscape of the great American Southwest. And then for the surfing theme, of course, with Lilo and Stitch, you've got the Chinese landscape with the Great Wall and the Eddie Murphy dragon from Mulan and Mulan herself on the horse, which is really fantastic. And then you have this Tarzan landscape also with the addition of some Jungle Book characters. And of course you have Aladdin and Arabia, and who could forget the Lion King representing Africa, and the classic characters of Peter Pan and gang in London.
Tell us a little bit about Warner Brothers. You've done some paintings with Warner Brothers content, right?
Yeah, so the Warner Brothers stuff is all through Chuck Jones galleries. And Chuck Jones, as you know, was an animator for Warner Brothers and created hundreds of characters in addition to refining Bugs Bunny. So I met Linda Jones Enterprises, which is Chuck Jones Galleries. Linda Jones is Chuck Jones's daughter. And she kept his legacy alive by continuing to sell art and inviting artists to paint the Warner Brothers and Chuck Jones characters, and again, an interpretive style. So again, another great connection through the same channels. And I was able to do a number of commissions for their collectors and their fans through the Chuck Jones Galleries enterprise.
I see. So all these kind of marketing machines really helped you get the word out about these paintings. So not all of them were done in the Art Deco style, right?
Well, you know what? That's a good question, because they were inspired by the Art Deco era. So if there's always something in there, unless it's just a straight capture from a great scene in one of the cartoons. But even when I draw the Roadrunner or Wile E. Coyote, there is a streamlined facet to it to stylize it even more so to the era that I'm portraying.
And you did a King Kong poster too, I know. So it's a King Kong one.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. King Kong, yeah. I did King Kong and I did The Wizard of Oz. Everyone asked me what inspired you for the King Kong poster. It's actually a limited edition. What inspired me for that image was the original King Kong movie from the 1920s. So I didn't do anything other than stylize. You got King Kong at the top, he's hanging on the spire of the Empire State Building, and at the bottom you have an airplane, and it's all Art Deco stylized.
Yeah, and that's on your website too, I guess.
It will be.
Oh,
I got a lot of images up there, but the King Kong's not up there yet.
So what have you been up to more recently? I understand you're working on a children's book.
Yes, I was asked to illustrate a children's book for the survivors of the Paradise campfires in 2018. And I illustrated a 26-page book in full color. It's meant for children and survivors of the fire to help with the PTSD of that traumatic, very traumatic situation. 85 people were deceased and died in that fire. Jacqueline, who I did the illustrations for her book, she was a survivor that got out just in the nick of time with her children. So what she ended up doing is writing a book to help them cope with the PTSD of that tragedy. And the book itself is actually very tame. It only shows one little fire, and the rest of it is the coping mechanism to help rebuild and help get over the trauma of that event.
That's a very interesting topic.
Right now it's available on Amazon Press, Barnes & Noble Press, and we're seeking a literary agent to help take it further.
Oh,
it is available now.
Awesome.
About a year ago, you showed me some robots. I believe you brought them into one of my classes, showed my students all these robots. Tell us a little bit about the robot project and how you're going about it.
During COVID, when everyone was under lockdown, aside from doing all the work that I was doing with my work projects, I came up with an idea to build one of those pipe-fitting robots that you see. Old figure drawing poses, just the basics. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem interesting enough. So I took it to the next level and got the parts that I wanted, and not just pipe fittings, but sink faucet heads, lights, different hardware parts from different pieces of hardware all over the place for plumbing and decoration. And instead of just having them raw, that I would paint them and make them look more like Transformers than just a pipe fit robot. I'm going to show this. Here's an example of one of them. And This is built all with hardware parts. See, this right here is a knob. That's a knob. And I just found all these parts that fit together, customized them so that they would look like more than just a pipe fitting robot. And once I did the first one, I'm like, wow, that one's bitching, but I'm going to try something different. And I ended up building a whole bunch of them during COVID. They're all painted and distressed and have different lighting systems on them. So most of them have lights on and battery operated. When you flick the switch, not only does the light go on, but it illuminates the whole entire robot.
How do you get the lights in there?
They are LED lights that I hooked up to AAA battery.
There wasn't a plan for this. You just sort of were inspired to do them.
No. The more I showed that to people, the more they liked them.
And what did you use to decorate them? I saw like all kinds of, there's the lights.
Yeah, so For this one, for instance, has a drill bit for a hand and a saw for a hand. And these are all just parts that I found at like Tractor Supply Company and hardware store, and washer, and all the different parts that don't even belong together, but I fabricated them so that they would be.
So it's just like common hardware, and you kind of were able to make art out of this stuff?
Yeah, just from Home Depot and Lowe's.
Wow. Okay.
You know, Summit Racing has some pretty cool specialty parts that I would use. I'd be at Summit Racing getting parts that are, you know, kind of hot rodish and make them look like side panels and bulletproof panels on the robot. Kept getting more and more elaborate as I did them.
So how many do you have right now?
Probably 20 that are built.
20. Wow.
And, yeah.
20 robots.
And probably another 5 or 6 in boxes that are ready to be built.
It's a pretty big series.
One of them looks like a 63 Stingray Corvette. And the way I said it, looks like a hot rod, a classic hot rod paint job. Probably one of my favorites.
So you've also done some mascot design too. Some of the mascots you've designed. You did one called ARV. I guess it stands for Alien Resident Visitor.
That is correct. Yeah, that was another product to promote a tech company that I was working with. I was doing all of the graphics and the branding for the company. Mm-hmm. And came up with Art. He comes in from outer space and introduces himself with an app to explore the world.
So he's kind of like Warner Brothers too. He's very cartoony, but you've also done this Art Deco style on him.
He's got the streamlined fin ears, he's got the antenna, he's got the lightning bolt chest plate, and the Art Deco backpack, and he goes around to different places and doesn't give a review, but just goes and visits things that he didn't know were there through the app.
Yeah, he's the mascot for a travel app.
And his best friend is a bee, and he makes friends with a guy called the Captain, who is here on Earth, and they kind of run around together.
Thanks everyone for watching the 4th episode of Entrepreneur Arts. Episode 4 is very fitting since Mike is doing Star Wars. Mike is an entrepreneur, an artist, and very talented at both. Looking forward to seeing everyone next time. Thanks for watching another episode of Entrepreneur Arts, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike, for joining the show.
Thank you, Dan.